Hi everyone. It is Chasing Dreams Thursdays. Welcome. My name is Lisa McLean, and I am the founder and CEO of Lisa McLean Publications. Hi, Mrs. Lewis. How are you? Welcome, welcome. It's good to see you. Hi, Craig. How are you doing? Good to see you. Congrats on your new post, Craig. I'm excited for you. I know you're going to do an amazing job. Nice. All right. So it's Chasing Dreams Thursdays, and you know the usual. We start with what little step did you take to chase your dreams this week? And I feel like Craig has a big step to share. So I am going to share my little step and then jump into the chats. My little step this week was, what was my little step? There were so many steps. I don't know which one to choose. My little step was learning to let go. Learning to let go, be flexible, and change your mind. So I had, a couple months ago, mentioned that I was trying to adapt one of my manuscripts for a competition, which meant lengthening it, developing it. Turned out I actually had a little bit more time than I thought. So I think I have till the end of August, and I was pushing. And then I decided, you know what? It's not a good idea. I'm looking at my book. I know if I really push it and change it up, it's going to be developed beyond the point where the story itself remains true to its original form and the point it was trying to make. It'll become too drawn out, not the right plot. So my lesson for this week was to change my mind and go back to my original idea and hold on to my original idea and stand by it. So please share your little steps that you took this week. Let me jump into the chat. Mrs. Lewis, I'm good. I had a pretty exciting week because I'm running an entrepreneurship workshop for children. And needless to say, I'm having a good time, and I feel like I'm learning as much as they're learning. So, as I go along, I come across another little nugget that I hadn't considered before, now that I'm on my own journey of entrepreneurship. So I'm mapping out for them my process while also learning myself and filling in the gaps for the things that I may have missed along the way. How are you? You just had a wonderful trip. I can see that you went to see your grandkids. Did you have a good time? Craig, I listened to the voice in my head and took a bet on myself. That's my little step. Changed my mindset, was very intentional over the past 2 weeks, and I have refocused on my why. That's so important, Craig. And I'm glad you said that, because I think so often we second guess ourselves. I think we spend a lot of time seeking advice, whether it's through books or podcasts or just speaking with our friends. And I think that's important. I think it's important to gather information, but I think sometimes it drowns out the voices in our own heads. And especially when we are chasing a why and chasing a dream and chasing a purpose that only we understand. We're the only ones that can know and feel and the passion behind it, or we're the only ones who know why we've made a decision. And sometimes we defer and shut our voices down, and that's not always what we should be doing, right? So I'm glad you did that, and I'm glad you stopped and refocused. I needed to do something like that recently, so I'm glad you said that as well. That I think sometimes we can get so caught up in the journey, or we can get so caught up in how difficult the journey is, that we have to rethink our why. We have to remind ourselves why we started. So good stuff, Craig. I'm glad you shared that. Hello, old pirate. Thank you for joining. Good to see you. I see Craig loading up Stephen. I hope Stephen joins us. Stephen is working on some interesting projects. I think he's moving slowly on that book. But yes, encourage him. And I mean, Craig has dropped in on our drop-in writing sessions on a Tuesday morning. So I'm just reminding everyone that that's open to everyone. It's open to our subscription members, but it's open to everyone who feels that they need a space once a week to just be able to focus and work on their writing. So my topic for tonight, I am focusing on why it's important to take a break. Why it's important to take a break. I'm in the process of trying to plan. I have a number of guests who've promised to jump on the show, and I have been inundated with planning for my workshop this week that I have not followed up with some of those visits. So I am this evening deciding to go with a less structured than usual program, just because I thought it was important to pause sometimes, important to not keep pushing yourself. So tonight, instead of having something prepared, I will give you my thoughts on why it's important sometimes to hit pause, to take that break, to slow down. And then next week, we definitely jump back into our usual kind of scheduled programming. So definitely give me your thoughts on what I will be sharing tonight. And before I do that, let me just check the chat window because it's so exciting tonight. It's so busy. Chris, thank you so much for joining. So good to see you. Mrs. Lewis shared, always learning that it is not always our way or the highway, but the happiest way. I like that. And it really does tie back into that idea of being flexible, right? Sometimes we do need to change plans. Sometimes we do need to change gears. Sometimes it's not the destination that changes. This is one of my biggest lessons in this season of entrepreneurship and rolling out my publications platform and continuing to develop where I teach. But one of my biggest lessons was we can have these lofty goals and destinations that we're trying to reach to. And I'm not talking about the mini goals. I'm talking about those very big, lofty dreams. You know, that amazing business that you're trying to grow and what you want it to achieve and the purpose you want it to serve, or that amazing book that you're trying to publish that you want to leave a legacy and a voice for your kids. Whatever that lofty dream is, I'm learning that sometimes we need to let go of the journey and how we get there. Because sometimes we become so fixated on the journey and the mini steps that the journey becomes stressful and tedious and more difficult than it needs to be, when in reaching and aspiring to those dreams, the journey is half the joy, right? So I agree with you, Mrs. Lewis. Sometimes it's good to relax into the journey. Relax into the journey. Take the bends, take the shifts. Sometimes your way was not the best way. And you may find that your journey to your destination is a happier one and a far more fulfilling one. So learning to relinquish control sometimes. For those of you who may not be aware, we do stream live on Instagram and on YouTube. So my eyes look funny, right? I'm bouncing between my phone and my computer. Does the Zoom link work indefinitely for the drop-in session? You know it does. It does, Craig. So for those of you who already have it, you can use it. I do try to repost it every Tuesday. But again, this has been an interesting week with my workshop. So I kind of fell behind in sending that out early enough, just because I was so focused on getting the workshop up and running, which I really absolutely enjoyed. Absolutely enjoyed. So hoping we can do it again soon. Chris Maxwell, there's a question for you. Feel free to answer. Craig Thomas, who thinks he knows you. Hello, Julia from Truvi Music. Thank you for joining. Julia has one of the most amazing voices. You guys should check on her music. Look for her on Truvi. You need to tell us. Julia, tell us where we can find Truvi Music. I think you're on Spotify and Apple Music, right? But an absolutely beautiful and talented singer. She is Truvi Music. Check her out on Instagram as well. That's why you missed this week, Craig. I figured that some people were waiting on the link and I totally forgot. So Truvy Music, put your contact info, your IG handle, and where we can find your music in the comments, please, so we can share and cheer you on. Click the link in bio. Nice, I like it. So check that out. That's my niece, guys. So I'm partial, but her music is lovely. Okay. So my topic for tonight, and feel free, I'd love this to be more of a discussion. And you guys, thank you. There you go, Craig. You will not regret it. She's amazing. So feel free to jump into the conversation and share your thoughts with me. So this week was hectic. I literally left work at 8, knowing I had to turn right back around for us to do the live at 8:30. And I said to myself, you know what? Time to hit pause. And I think it's important to focus tonight on that idea of knowing when to slow down, knowing when to take a break. And for several reasons. You know I love that number 3, so let's see if I can stay true to the number 3 and throw out to you my 3 reasons, or 2, why I think that's really, really important. I want to even add to my introduction in this week's writers workshop that came up. So, you know, it's really hard to make a bestsellers list having only published 1 book. Unless, of course, you're already extremely well known and you already have a network and an established following. So if you are any of the Obamas, you know, if you are, I don't know, who else can I think of? Bill Gates. You know, if you are a well-established musician or singer, Lionel Richie, you already have an audience. Your first book is going to be a success regardless. But for you and I, who may be traveling this journey and are trying to establish a writing career for ourselves, it's not going to happen with the first book. And essentially, the rule of thumb is that, you know, it takes the first 3 to really start to seeing some gains on your investments. But it really takes churning out almost on average. I think most authors aim to do almost like an average of a book a year to really kind of build a following. It's when you get into 15, 16, 20 books that you really kind of start to see everything coming together, and the financial investment makes a whole lot of sense for the effort that you're putting in, right? So we were discussing that in our drop-in writer session this Tuesday, and it was, well, are you meeting that goal? Now, I have lots of books that I've written that need to be illustrated, that need to be finished, that need to be ... And I've kind of fallen behind. I've released 1 for this year. Will I make my deadline to release another 1 for next year? Not at the rate that I'm going. But then I also realized I'm in a season of starting a new business and helping to expand another. And have taken on a caregiver role because my mom has dementia, and that's new to me and new to her, and new to what life is going to be like for a while. And so I really had to be quite thoughtful about how I responded to that question of, well, if you need to get to an average of a book a year, are you on track? Are you, as the coach, on track? And I said, you know what? I'm not. And I think it's important, particularly as coaches, as mentors, all of us are leaders in some capacity in our own little sphere, whether it's among our friends or in our businesses. But I think it's really important to be able to say, depending on the season you're in, you may have to reevaluate your timelines for those audacious goals that you are pursuing, because you're not going to make it to that goal if you're burnt out. You're not going to make it to that goal if you are not able to be thoughtful and focused about the process. Now, I'm not saying you're going to do it perfectly. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, you know how this works. You start where you are and you give it a go and you learn and you adapt as you come along. But I do feel that starting is one thing, but propelling at a rate that could be costly to your health does not make any sense either. And so I did have to reevaluate my timeline for a bit. Hopefully I will be able to get back on track with my writing. But right now, because my time is so tight, and because adapting to caregiving really takes a lot, it's very emotionally draining, right? You have to wrap your head around new responsibilities and seeing your parents as someone you have to care for as opposed to someone who used to take care of you can be emotionally taxing to wrap your head around, right? It takes some getting used to. And so hence my discussion tonight. I opted to not rush through preparing for a session this evening because I just knew, having run my great, exciting, wonderful workshop for this week that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and checked in with mom, made sure she's good, I knew to show up tonight, I needed to hit pause and pivot a bit in my plans. Hi, Ronique, so good to see you. So, my number one takeaway for moving slowly, it does not make sense to keep barreling forward at the expense of your health. Sometimes you do have to adjust that timeline so that you can truly enjoy the journey and truly enjoy what your end goals are, right? Don't burn out in the process. Number two, boy, if you're frazzled, you're probably not doing a really good job. And again, I'm not saying that we're ever doing anything to perfection, and most of us are straddling two different sets of responsibilities, right? Whether it's a full-time job plus a hustle, whether it's a job and caring for families, and writing. There are always like 2 or 3 spheres that we're showing up in. So you have to know when to pull back in one area so that you can still show up and be your authentic self in those other areas. So maybe right now your priority is your young kids, and so maybe you're not writing every day. Maybe you need to adjust that schedule and write once a week. And so instead of publishing in 6 months, publish in 9, right? Adjust accordingly. Maybe it's just a really busy season at work. Maybe you're onboarding new staff, or it's tax season, and so you have paperwork that have to be covered. Pull back on the writing as well. So it's important that you're able to show up for all of your various responsibilities when you need to, for that point in time. So adjusting is going to be important. It makes no sense writing if you're burnt out. If you're burnt out and frazzled at the end of the day, you come home and you rush through your time with your kids, or you come home and not quite put together what you needed to do at work, and then you're rushing to fit in for that 5-minute writing time that you said you must do every day. If you're not focused and ready and rested, then that's not a very productive writing time. So sometimes it might be a good idea to just hit pause. Don't write for a week. Take a break. Focus on everything else so that when you can show up for your writing in a week, in 2 weeks, or on a weekly schedule instead of every day, then you're showing up more refreshed, more focused, and you're able to accomplish more in that slightly extended period than if you were trying to push and push and push and maintain what is probably not a manageable schedule right now. So that's my number 2. Hello, Jules Chin. Thanks for joining. So we said know when to take a break because your health is important so that when you reach the goal, you can enjoy it. You're far more productive if you have taken a break and you're restful. And I would say that my number 3 for knowing when to take a break is to remind ourselves that we have a much larger purpose than all of these tasks that we set ourselves, right? Sometimes you do have to step away and do exactly what Craig spoke about earlier in the session, which was allowing yourself a chance to reorient. Because sometimes in the busyness, sometimes in checking off those tasks, sometimes in just writing, we forget the why. Why are you writing? Why are you trying to write this book? Why are you trying to keep up with this writing project on top of everything else? All right, and I've had to do that periodically. Ever so often I have to stop and go, but why have you taken up writing at this stage in your life? And I know at my core, I love writing and I want to produce books that children will get excited about. And in particular, I want to focus on books that tie in my passions, right? So they tie in history, and I want kids to read historical fiction that help them to understand and to connect with their past, but in a very real and substantial way. And I want to write about learning, and I want to write about math, and I want to write about some of the angst that kids go through, but in a way that helps them to see themselves and their friends so that it's relatable. And I have to remind myself to always come back to that, because I'll have a list of projects. I'll be sitting in a class and an idea comes up. I'll be sitting in traffic, an idea comes up. I'll be chatting with my friends, an idea comes up, and I have to remind myself I can't do all of it. So when I take a break, it allows me to reorient, pause, and if I know that my goal is to create books that are meaningful for kids from mixed backgrounds, from the Caribbean, the kids in the diaspora who are from Caribbean families who need to see and understand themselves and see themselves in literature, then it means I have to focus on those themes right now. Until, of course, my big why, there's another why that changes. But for now, it helps to keep me on track. And it also helps me to see how my writing is so closely connected to my teaching, because they're not separate. And one feeds the other, and one inspires the other. And if I don't stop long enough to focus and catch my breath, I don't ever have time to remind myself to reorient and decide, well, what is my why? What is my purpose? Why am I doing this? How are they all connected? Because they are, for me. You know, me as educator, me as writer, all of these come together to really creating a space where children enjoy learning, whether it's through reading themselves and searching for information or coming to class. And hopefully I'm creating things that teachers can then use in their classrooms for their kids to enjoy learning. So, take a break. Take a break sometimes. Take a break to reorient to your why. Take a break so that you can absolutely enjoy the journey while still meeting all of these responsibilities that you have, and being able to do them well. And take a break so that when you've reached and attained that goal, you can enjoy it. You are healthy enough to enjoy it. All right, those are my 3 takeaways. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Why would you want to take a break? When have you ever, what advice would you give other authors? What has your journey been like that you'd love to share this evening? We have a couple minutes left before we sign out. Any thoughts on what, writing and reorienting? And remember, while you're thinking about it, to join us for our drop-in writing sessions. Should you need that weekly time, check out our subscription groups on IamLisaMcLean.com. Drop me a line anytime. I like that, Mrs. Lewis. It's good to take a break and come back refreshed. Do something completely different and come back refreshed. I do find that that's very helpful. And it's akin to why they say sleep is beneficial, right? Because it's allowing your brain to kind of stop and consolidate all of this information that it's trying to process. So really, really important. All right, so we have about a minute to go before we sign out. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to these sessions every Thursday. Absolutely enjoy them. Remember to check in IamLisaMcLean.com so you can see what we've been up to, and you can see lots of ideas and ways that I can help you to achieve your writing dreams. We have a fun subscription group running where we meet once a week for coaching, and we meet once a week for drop-in sessions, and then work on more in-depth writing, webinars, guest speakers. So check us out, take a look at the books, see how we can help you, and as usual, take one little step this week to chasing your dreams. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to sign out for today. Have a wonderful weekend and chase those dreams. I'll see you next Thursday. Bye, everyone.